Welcome to Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks, a show that provides extraordinary insights for product managers who want to go faster and farther in their product management careers.
Hello, this is JJ Rory, Vice President at Sequent Learning Networks. In our Masters of Product Management podcast, we tap into the experiences of people who work in and around product management to help you learn and grow in your product management career. Well, wow, what a world we've been living in. It's currently late March in 2020, and the world has been drastically affected by the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Depending on where you live in the world, you've been dealing with this for a few weeks or even a few months. Many countries are on full or partial lockdown. As of the time we're recording this, there have been 740,000 recorded cases and over 35,000 deaths globally. We are all rightfully scared and emotional over this, and hopefully taking precautions to avoid spreading the virus. Most of the people I know are working from home if able. Some are sheltering in place, like myself, and even quarantined in some cases. And at a minimum, the idea of social distancing has become a part of our lives. The life and death aspect of these times is front and center in our minds, as it should be. But there's also an economic aspect to this pandemic. Many small businesses have been forced to shut down, at least temporarily. Businesses are furloughing or laying off employees. The United States had its highest ever unemployment claims at 3.28 million in the week ending March 21st, almost 12 times higher than just the week prior. Most experts have officially declared that we are in a global recession. So while the health and safety of employees should be the top priority for all businesses, of course, frankly, we still must try to keep the customers we have and find ways to help those customers weather this storm. At this time, it's even more imperative that product managers are in touch with their customers to uncover needs and problems and help solve those problems if possible. After all, your customers have very different problems than they did just a few short weeks ago. So what can you do to support your customers at this time? How can you be respectful of what they're going through, but still keep in contact in this new quarantine, social distancing environment? And even after all of this is over, the world will have changed. Things are happening now that we should learn from and that may guide us in the future. My guest is here today to lend some expertise to this conversation, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing her insights. Vidya Dinamani is founder of Product Rebels, a product training and coaching company that teaches people hands-on ways to become stronger, customer-focused product managers. Vidya has over 18 years of experience in product, including multiple executive roles at leading companies such as Intuit. She's coached over 200 companies from startups to Fortune 50 and loves seeing teams transform when they understand how to build products that customers love. Vidya, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, JJ. I'm so glad to be talking with you this morning.
So we both work with product managers and organizations all over the world. What are you seeing from your customers and partners during this time? And maybe what are they seeing from their customers?
Yeah, this is such a crisis that we're living through. And I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing is questions around how does this change our plans, both like short-term, medium, and long-term. I mean, many of the clients that we're working with have either just locked down their product strategy, or with one client, this literally hit as we were in the last week of wrapping it up. And so questions like, what does this mean to my customers now? Do we change what we're doing in order to meet what we might think are short-term needs? Are these going to go longer? Is this going to be 6, 12 months? And this means a drastic change in plan. So it has just given, I think, uncertainty to pretty much every product team that we work with.
Yes, I agree. I have heard specifically from a few clients asking that question: do we stay with our product roadmap? Does our strategy stay the same? Do we need to completely overhaul it? And the answer is it depends, right? I mean, it's in some cases it's easy to say, let's essentially hunker down and do nothing, right? Other than try to stave off the crisis. But in some cases, if the strategy actually fits with what your customers are going to need, it's a time to even go harder at that strategy. And those executives and those product people in the organizations have to take a real look at what's going on for their customers. And as I've told clients, don't be tone deaf, right? Be respectful of what your customers are going through, and understand that they may have no interest whatsoever in what your strategy is, unless it absolutely can help what they're going through, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I think there's a couple of pieces to that. I think one from just looking internally from our clients, from the company's perspective, because there's this huge spanner thrown into the plans. It's, oh my gosh, what is going to happen to me in my business? And I think that's a really understandable fear and concern. You just talked about the unemployment, a number of jobs that are changing. I think it's we really feel for every business out there, and especially the smaller businesses that are just starting and trying to get to new customers and have been employing, I think, pretty traditional ways of trying to get out there and grow. This changes everything. But what I would say is there's a way now to really exercise that core product management strength, which is empathy. I think we're all in this together. And so reaching out and trying to think about, what do we do next? Because whatever happens, the world has changed. We're not going to hit reset and go exactly back to where we were 3-4 weeks ago. So with that in mind, as you think about customers, what are they going through now with your existing customers? And how do you reach out and understand what they're going through? And then how do you test ideas about what you could do as a product to maybe get to new customers and new problem sets that have been uncovered by this crisis? I think it goes back to this beginning of, like, let's start with, we really need to understand what our customers are going through, and then go back to sort of core principles of what is our hypothesis around this. And this is how we're talking to our clients, which is, let's go back to basics. Let's ask the question about what fundamental problems are we seeing, and then talk to customers, which is, I know, not as easy as it sounds, but there's two pieces of it. One is, there's a lot of us at home. Most of us are at home. So consumers are actually fairly easy to get hold of these days. I mean, when we're locked inside, sometimes having a conversation for 30, 45 minutes with someone else is pretty welcome, especially if you're paying them sort of a small honorarium. And the tough part, which has always been getting to executive leaders, I think is exaggerated now. I think it's even harder to get to those executives because they're distracted. They're busy trying to take care of their teams, and the last thing they want to do is engage in someone else's customer research. And so what we've been saying is, more than ever, try to get to proxies. Try to get someone in your network who is a leader, who is in maybe a similar industry, but if not, maybe the same size, maybe the same type of customers, same type of teams, and just exercise that empathy. What are they going through? Try to get underneath what's happening. So those, I think, going back to basics and asking those fundamental questions will help guide as to what do we do going forward.
That's really great advice. And what's interesting, I was having a conversation with a client recently, and we at Sequent and you at Product Rebels teach product managers on a daily basis the importance of market research, market analysis, needs analysis, customer feedback. And it's such a core part to product management. And so obviously we focus on that a lot. But I was having this interesting conversation with a client, and she was saying that even though she got a lot out of that coaching and training and workshop, it was almost theoretical at that point, because it was under normal circumstances, right? We weren't in this ridiculous world that we're living in now. And she was telling me that how principles that were taught and coached are now being used in real time in this dynamic world, right? How do we truly understand the markets being dynamic? I mean, talk about a market being dynamic. We wake up every day and something else has changed. And talk about your customers having these dynamic needs. So it's just it's almost a case study in the real world of everything that we've been kind of teaching product managers over the years. It's just an unfortunate time to actually have to do it and do it really well.
No, I so agree with that. I think that's a really interesting sort of point you make about it from the theoretical and almost a nice to have with some teams that we work with. Few product managers will do this and take it very, very seriously. And there's others, I think, we all have crazy jobs. They're moving fast. You've got to keep your dev teams busy. So it can feel as if this is a luxury. It's a luxury to talk to your customers. It's nice when you can get to it. And I think that you're right. We've been preaching, talk to your customers for a long time now. And now it's critical. It's mission critical, because if you don't understand what your customers are going through and you assume that it's business as usual, I think that's going to have real consequences. And the companies and the product managers who actually take the time to learn right now and to reach out with empathy, understanding that everyone's world is changing, and to come down to listen to what your customers are saying, and then take those implications back into your roadmaps, back into what you're planning to do. And then you can have a real conversation about trade-offs based on what is actually happening.
So let's dig a little there. What are you seeing on the front of getting in contact with your customers? What's working well? What is the balance between respecting their time and need to focus on their business and also trying to support them and gain feedback from them?
That's a great question. So maybe just a few different tips that we're seeing. And I'll start with the first is to connect with your team first as a product manager. If you're a product manager leader listening to this, I think first job is just to practice that empathy with ourselves. And I see a lot of this in terms of support in various product management networks, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or the other communities. I'm seeing so much activity in terms of people supporting each other. And so I think making sure that the product team is in a good place is number one. And in doing that, I think it raises our empathy level to then think about, how do I reach either customers or prospects, people that I think might be interested or may have a problem that our product can solve differently. I've seen so many companies reach out recently with really positive stories about how they're changing their manufacturing to make ventilators. We are working with one company in the life sciences who completely shut down her operation and is now making sanitizer. So this ability to see the resources that you have and then to listen to people out there and to put that magic together. What do we have as core assets? And then what do people need? So in terms of reaching out and some tips on finding out, use those networks. Ask people if they know of your persona in their networks. Use your local communities. I'm not beyond sort of saying, reach out on Nextdoor, reach out on the different social networks that you have, and see if people have problems that are connected to your hypothesis about what you believe needs to be done. And if you really don't know, then I think sending out the question to your personal networks, your social networks, and saying, I just want to hear from people that are going through a set of problems or have, these characteristics. People will reach out. I think I see so many people connecting and helping each other. I think there's lots and lots of ways to do that. So I go back to use your networks, use your connections, reach out to your community, give back, offer your connections and your networks and your people to be able to help each other. I think that's the way we go in a scrappy way to get through this type of really important research need.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And one thing I'm doing is literally just sending an email to clients and saying, hey, there's no need for you to respond to this if you don't want to, but is there anything I can do to support you? And kind of keeping it as simple as that. We work with a lot of B2B businesses and industrial and manufacturing, and so a lot of the products of our clients are components of their clients' products, right? And so there's this, of course, this huge supply chain issue, and either our clients are the components or they're waiting on components. And so there's this importance of making sure that you're always contacting your customers to either say, our components are still on the line. We're still in business. We're going to get you the components that you need in those cases. Or if they're not, then, to use your examples, if we're doing something else with our manufacturing lines right now for the greater society, for the greater community, then communicating that to customers and just letting them know what's going on, and still trying to be support systems and resources for them. So great advice. I guess my only final question that I'd like to explore with you is, what are your thoughts on the new normal? I have to think that after all of this is over, which may be months from now, maybe even, all of 2020, we're wrapped up into this. Nobody wants to think of that, but I can imagine it, frankly. What are some of the aspects that you think will stick around or should stick around? What will we have learned from all of this that could make us better product managers?
It's funny, I go back to the first part of our conversation, which is this change in customer research and understanding your customers being, a nice to have or a luxury, or someone else in the company that's responsible for that, and bringing it back to this core responsibility of always being in touch with your customers. And I think that I see over the course of, I don't think this will ever change, this need to really understand what your customers are going through, what they're looking for, and to translate those needs into things that we can do, right? So it's kind of back to the core of observe or listen, turn that into insight, and then create a need that we can actually go after and win with. And I think that urgency and that need is not going to go away. I think that product managers are going to find that this set of capability, when we're all staying in place, when we're sheltering in place, having to reach out, having to be creative and really scrappy about how you learn, how you get to customers, I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think that that's a skill, and I'm definitely glasses half full right now in the midst of all this chaos, but I think this ability to connect as human beings, this increase in empathy that we all have as we go through this together, I think is just going to make us better product managers. And I think we're going to get much more creative and much more able to go out and at any moment in any place be able to talk to a customer or prospect, because we've just got really good at it.
Yeah, I think that's so spot on. This has just been a great discussion. These are truly unprecedented times. So product managers out there, be a resource for your customers, be a support system, help solve problems when possible, just be a sounding board if that's all you can be. Most importantly, just hang in there and remember we're all in this together. Vidya Dinamani, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your insights today.
Thank you so much, JJ. I really enjoyed it.
It was a great conversation. Thanks again. And thank you for joining us on Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks. I am JJ Rory, and I look forward to speaking with you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks. If you'd like to take your career to the next level with additional tools, training, coaching, and books, be sure to visit Sequent Learning Networks at sequentlearning.com.